Hello there, everybody. How are you tonight? Once again, this is Dax Allred, just out for another evening walk and rambling into my microphone as I do so. So the stars are out tonight. Lots of constellations. I'm in town, and yet, well, I can barely see the Milky Way galaxy. You know, usually the galactic arm is dim enough that you can't see it through all of the city lighting, but tonight I can. It's just a prime example of just how brightly the stars are shining tonight. I'm out here a little bit earlier than I was last night. Last night I didn't get out of the house until about midnight. It's currently about 10 p.m. where I'm at. The temperature is cooler too. There is a tree that I have a tendency to walk by on my walks. This particular tree, it's got a circle of stones around it. I like to think of it as a fairy circle. Who knows what the owners think of it as. But it's the same house that has a face into one of the trees in their yard. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised to find out that they view it the same way I do. You know, the other day I went out to the Renaissance Festival. I almost called it the local Renaissance Festival, but it's a few hundred miles away from where I live. But yeah, we were at the local Renaissance Festival. And there's always a bunch of people there dressed in fairy costumes, dressed in folklore. Actually, there were fewer this year than there have been in the past. But there were a couple of them that came up and sat down on the ground right in front of me, and I think that they were just tired, they needed to rest. This one particular woman came up to them. She was also dressed in fairy costumes. I think she was also part of the same group because they did all seem to know each other. But she came up doing kind of a rhythmic dance thing. Invited the other two to go off somewhere with her. I'm not certain where it was. Probably someplace where they could go get away from the crowds for a little bit, because they did all look kind of tired. But the two people sitting down there on the ground, the guy, he decided to stay put where he was at. And so the girl that invited them away, she leant over and kissed him on top of the head. And it was one of the sweetest things I think I've ever seen. I guess it sticks with me because I don't really get to see that much anymore. People don't have any affection for each other anymore, or at least they don't show it. And I just walked into a space where there's a little bit of gap in the street lighting, and the stars are really shining here. Oh my God, the cosmos is gorgeous. I have always loved outer space. You know, I was, if I remember right, I think I was in second grade when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. You know, it's one of those things that everybody says, oh, you always remember what you were doing when that happened, and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I was in class at the time. I was in class when the word came down that the Space Shuttle Challenger had exploded. And I always got the strangest response from people. They were all coming up to me going, I bet you're glad you're not an astronaut now, don't you? I'm like, well, no, I'd still like to be in space. Anyone who knows anything about space knows it's one of the most dangerous things you can do. Why am I supposed to be turned off from it just because a shuttle exploded? We all know how dangerous it'll be. I don't know, people are basically afraid of everything. They're afraid of living. And you know, I can understand why a person might not be interested in space travel. But don't take a person who is interested in space travel and try to convince them they should never do it just because it's dangerous. That's just a stupid stance to take. I don't understand why people do that. I had something very similar happen when I first started admitting to people that I wanted to take that trip to Mexico that I took a while back. Everyone was talking to me about the danger of it as if that was supposed to deter me. You know, as if I was suddenly not supposed to want to do the thing that I want to do just because it's dangerous. You know, as if I didn't already know it was going to be dangerous. But, you know, people do that. I'm trying very hard not to think of the human race as a bunch of cowards. I don't know. A lot of people are guided by their fear, though. Fear, 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 fear. It's the same kind of fear that keeps us locked into a system that doesn't work. You know, we're locked into a system that doesn't work because we fear the alternative, even if the alternative's better. But that's how people are. This really is a beautiful night, though. I don't think I could have asked for better weather than this. Quite phenomenal. Phenomenal, that's a word we have a tendency to misuse quite a bit, isn't it? Phenomenal. How many people out there actually know what the word phenomenon means? All that the word phenomenon means is it's a thing that we're experiencing. Pretty much the only time we ever hear the word used is whenever someone on TV is trying to drum up hype over something. Come experience the phenomenon that is blah blah blah. Looking at an apple is a phenomenon. It's the way you're experiencing the apple. The Numenon is what the apple actually is. A phenomenon is just a play off of the word Numenon. The Numenon is what an object actually is, and a phenomenon is how we experience that object. It's based on the philosophical truth that it is impossible for us to know the reality that we're experiencing. You know, back to the apple thing. And I'm using the term apple because that's how it was described to me. But, you know, you can look at an apple. You can hold an apple. You can taste an apple. But you're never actually experiencing the apple itself. It's impossible to experience the Numenon. You know, you can say, well, I'm looking at the apple, but you're not experiencing the apple. You're experiencing the way your eyes interpret the apple as looking. You're not actually holding the apple. You can't feel the weight. You can't actually feel the slickness of the skin. What you're doing is you're experiencing the phenomenon of the apple's weight. You're experiencing the phenomenon of the way the apple's skin feels. It is impossible to know the Numenon, only the phenomenon. It might sound to you that I'm talking about nonsense, or in many cases it might sound to you like I'm simply discussing something that's not really important. But spend some time thinking about this. Think about what it actually means. The fact that it is impossible to experience an object itself. You never actually know what that object is. All your knowledge is secondhand. It's a very profound understanding, and it radically alters the way you view the world around you. For me, it made me question whether or not my own body was even real, because I'm only actually experiencing the phenomenon of my nervous system, not the Numenon. I don't know if my body's actually even there. I can guess that the body's there. All the evidence points to the body being there, but all the evidence is based on phenomenal evidence. It's not based on anything in the Numenon. I just consider these sorts of things fun to consider. Fun little brain games. Got that noisy train going off there in the distance. I really wish I didn't live so close to one, but it's a pretty nice community. If the worst thing that I can say about it is that I hear a train occasionally, then that's not so bad. Just now entered a region in the neighborhood where the lights are really bright, so the sky has just turned black, can't see the stars at all. And here comes another car. And we've entered another gap in the lights. So the stars have popped back out again. The sky doesn't look so flat black anymore. I do find the cosmos to be something incredible, though. To misuse the phrase again, I find it to be very phenomenal. But when you consider the fact that every one of those little pinpricks of light is a distant star, and all of those little stars in the sky, those aren't even the majority of the stars out there. Those are just the ones that are really bright and really close. The closest star is so dim that you can't even see it without a telescope. Speaking of Proxima Centauri, apparently there's an Earth-like planet orbiting that star. Little bitty red dwarf in our galactic neighborhood. But yeah, every one of those little bits of light is a star with its own planets. And the vast majority of those stars we can't even see. They're either too dim, well, they're all too dim to be seen, too far away. One of the important things to remember in meditation, there are many forms of galactic meditation out there. Ones where you are supposed to expand your consciousness to encompass all of the cosmos that you know about. This is the reason why throughout much of history, galactic and cosmic meditations out there stop at Saturn. Because Saturn was the farthest known object to man, so they thought that's where the universe ended. But you can go so much farther than that. Every star in the sky that you can see without a telescope is right here in our little neighborhood, our little section of the Milky Way galaxy. Milky Way galaxy's fucking huge. We can't even see 1/100th of it. The galaxy that we're in is huge. The human brain is barely capable of comprehending it. And then you consider the fact that the Milky Way galaxy isn't even that big a deal as far as the cosmos is concerned. I mean, sure, the Milky Way galaxy is the second largest galaxy in our galactic cluster. But that still means that the Andromeda galaxy is bigger. And there is absolutely nothing unusual about our galactic cluster. I mean, there are trillions and trillions of clusters just like it. But yeah, you go into a cosmic meditation and you know a little bit about astronomy, suddenly you have to expand your consciousness to include all of that. This universe is so massive, and it's not even the only one. Another thing that I don't understand, I guess you've got to be a very negative person to think of things this way. You've always got someone who takes into consideration the size of the universe, and they always go, bet it makes you feel small now, doesn't it? Very negative attitude to have. You are so small. No, it doesn't make me feel small. It makes me feel like the universe is big. You don't have to be so negative about everything. People in our culture are taught that being negative is more realistic than being positive. What kind of a bullshit worldview is that? Being negative is more realistic than being positive? What a stupid concept. No, the only realistic way to view the world is to take both into consideration simultaneously. The universe is not a good place, it's not a bad place, it's a neutral place that reflects back to you whatever you put out. So no, when I conceptualize the sheer scale of the universe, it doesn't make me feel small at all. It makes me feel like the universe is huge, and there is a big difference between those. You might think that it's splitting hairs, but no, that's a huge difference between them. Because when you think of yourself as being small, you think of yourself as being weak. You think of yourself as being helpless. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We are incredible beings, every single one of us. It's just important to remember that as huge as the universe is, we're not the only ones out there. The attitude that people seem to have about extraterrestrials is also negativity. People don't think of it as negativity, but people who are negative usually don't see themselves as being negative. I mean, if you saw yourself as being negative, then you'd have to take responsibility for your actions. Far better for the ego. Far easier on the ego to tell yourself that the world is a negative place and that you're just a helpless victim living in it. That's not the truth. The universe is what you choose for it to be. It's a neutral universe. It can be good or bad depending on what you choose. Got another driver hot rodding along the street here. Going to get off of it so that I don't get hit. Rather slow for a hot rod, but boy was he revving it up. But yeah, it's far easier on the ego to call yourself a victim. If you call yourself negative, then you have to take responsibility for your thoughts and your actions and the direction that your life has taken. Which, if you don't want to take responsibility for that, that's fine. Some people, that's the point that they're at in their spiritual journey. There are certain spiritual paths that require the feeling of helplessness. I would never want that for myself in a million years. And although I don't want that for you either, it's still your choice to make, not mine. I had a point that I was going to get to with all of this, but it seems to have gotten lost in my rambling. Happens. Oh yeah, what I was going to get at is people's view on extraterrestrials. It used to be everybody's view was, we're alone in the universe. We are the only place in all of existence with life. And we, being humans, we are the most important thing on the planet. That alone is pretty arrogant. But we are the most important creatures on the planet. And since this planet is the only source of life in the universe, we are the most important things in it. We do have a nasty reputation for being the most egotistical sons of a bitches ever created. You watch our science fiction, our Star Trek and our Star Wars, and we're always so important and powerful and better off than all the other races. We're clowns. We're clods. We are so busy thinking that we're these great things that we have no clue what's really going on. But today that view has changed. We no longer view ourselves as being the only living things in the universe. We now view ourselves as one of many civilizations in the universe that are forever locked in separation from each other. We will never be able to contact each other physically because we're just so far apart. Which that right there is negative thinking too. It is unbalanced negative thinking. It's also egotistical thinking, because once again we're approaching it from the standpoint that if we haven't thought it up, then it must not be real. I don't know. I like the human race. I hope we make it. But we do some truly stupid things. Pretty much every problem we've ever had, we've done to ourselves. And we continue to do it. We're not even bright enough to learn from our own mistakes. Or at least not the people in power. We can change it. We can turn it around if we choose to. I hope we choose to. I really hope that we decide that life is more important than money. Life is more important than power. And being good is more important than stomping down other people in order to get whatever we happen to want right now. I really hope we change who and what we choose to be. Situation's not as hopeless as we like to think. If you're a negative thinker, it is your fault. I don't want to lie to you about it. It is your fault. It's also what you've been taught to do. Every time you turn on the TV and watch the news, every time you watch a news feed on the internet, it's all programming you to be negative. The reason why I say that the negativity is your fault is because you still have to choose to go along with it. I'm in the mood for a little snack. Let's see if this convenience store is still open. It's getting to be late enough that they might be closed. We'll see. Hello there. I've lost all track of time. Are you guys still open for the night? Another 10 minutes? I'm just after a candy bar or something, so I'm going to hop in there real quick if you don't mind. Oh, let's see here. So how are you doing tonight?
Good. It's been a long day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I've been here since 12. I'm pretty tired. 2:18.
All right. I double tapped that. Hope that didn't screw it up.
Nope. There it is. You
All
need
right.
it?
I'll take it anyway.
All
Might
right.
as well. You have a very good night.
Thank you. You too.
Now I have to go through the challenge of how to open a candy bar wrapper with only one hand. Chocolate is one of my great weaknesses, I'm afraid. Not certain what that was that just flew up above me there. Might have been a really large moth. My first instinct was that it was a bat, but it was moving awful slow for a bat, so I kind of discounted that. I'm pretty certain it was a large moth. So I really hope that the human race makes it. And I think we can. I don't think that we're past the point of no return. I've heard several people tell me that with the environment we are past the point of no return. The only reason we're not noticing it yet is because this is a first world nation. And so our economy kind of protects us. It produces a buffer against what we're doing to the planet. And we'll only start to feel it here later on. But I don't think that we're past the point of no return. I think what we will be if we keep this bullshit up. One of the things about environmentalism, though, and I'm not the only person saying what I'm about to say, this information's out there. But save the planet? No, we're not saving the planet. Planet's doing just fine. It's us, the humans, that are going to die if we keep doing what we're doing. Planet will be just fine. Planet has produced many, many different life forms before us. They'll produce many, many more long after us. This planet will do just fine, regardless of what we do. But we're likely to die. If we keep doing what we've been doing, we'll die. And the reason we'll die is because people actually believe that it's okay to destroy the environment if it's good for the economy. That's what you always hear on conservative news. You know, oh, we've got to do this horrible thing because it's good for the economy. And if you don't support the economy, then you're a bad American. You always hear people making that argument on TV. Got to kill our children because it's good for the economy. And if you don't support that, then you're a bad American. Strange viewpoint to take. Because the country needs the world we're living on as much as we do. More so. I mean, the human race is... Well, I was going to say the human race is guaranteed to outlive the country, but if the country continues to destroy the environment, then no, it won't. But if we save ourselves, if our grandchildren have a future, then yes, the human race will easily survive the country. The country is a corporation. It's not the land. It's a corporation. A country is a group of people who have mutually agreed to live under the same set of laws. But yeah, we really need to get our shit together as far as the environment's concerned. Because, once again, the planet's not the one that's going to pay the price for it. We are. We are the ones who will be destroyed if we keep going down the path we're going. On the way back home now. Still a long ways to go, but you know, the convenience store I was at earlier was my turnaround point for tonight. So I'm walking back home right now. Entered an area where there weren't very many street lights and I could see all the glorious stars. I wish that people were more curious than they are. Of course, there's a problem with curiosity. If you're curious, then you're hard to control. People without curiosity, they obey orders. They believe what they're told to believe. They don't ask questions. From society's perspective, there's a definite downside to curiosity. But for the individual, curiosity, that's where it's at. If you want to be a happy person, be curious. You need that sense of wonder, that sense of awe. I do wonder at what point the word awful suddenly changed its meaning to suggest something that's bad. I mean, awful. The word means full of awe. Oh. I think we can probably blame the Bible for that. I mean, if you were going to blame someone. You know, because the phrase God's awful wrath sounds a lot more negative when you put it in that context. But the word awful, it means full of awe. It's overwhelming. It's so massive that it just holds you in a state of awe, holds you in a state of amazement. Have you ever meditated while eating food? Yeah, if you haven't meditated on your food and drink while you're consuming it, I highly recommend it. I'd heard of food and drink meditation before. Never really started it as a practice until I started working my way through the book Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Bardon. I've had a tough time with that book. I've had to restart that book several times. According to Ron Clark, though, that's the way the book is designed. If you reach a point that you're not ready for yet, the book forces you to either start it all over again from scratch or to quit entirely. It's part of the process of turning you into a better person. But yeah, Initiation into Hermetics. One of the practices in there is that you're supposed to start meditating on all your food and drink before you consume it. The act of consuming food with a wish attached to it. The translation of the book that I read describes it as impregnating your wish into the meal or into the food. When you consume food that has a wish impregnated into it, it kind of solidifies the wish, makes it more real. Really is a phenomenal, I'm using the word phenomenal again, really is a phenomenal book. I think it's one of those words that have been misused so often that the misuse is considered to be normal now. But I really like the book Initiation into Hermetics. Even though I have never gotten very far into it, I've only gotten 2 or 3 chapters in. So far I've been working on that book for about 10 years, and that's all the farther I've gotten. But it is a neat book, full of potential. And what I've learned of Franz Bardon himself, I really like the man. You know, and it's one of those things, you never know what someone's really like. You know, you never know if a person is the way they were portrayed or whatever. You know, it's that old saying, it's the winners of the war that write history. So, you know, the winner of the war is going to make you think whatever it is that they want you to think about the particular person or subject. But what I have seen of Franz Bardon, what I've heard about him, I really like the guy. What I've seen and heard about him makes me feel a lot of affection towards him. But, yeah, once again, the whole subject of Franz Bardon came up because I was sitting here eating a candy bar. Sitting here. I was walking here. I'm walking while eating a candy bar and was meditating on my food and figured I'd bring that up. Of course, it should be pointed out that the book does mention that it's important to eat healthy. A candy bar is not exactly healthy, but I felt like getting a candy bar, and as long as I'm eating it, might as well turn it into a meditation. Besides, when you meditate on food while you're eating it, it enhances the flavor. You will taste that food in ways that you would never taste it otherwise. In that case, I guess what you could call the food phenomenal. Because, you know, meditating on the food enhances your experience of its phenomenon. But yeah, the sheer level of flavor that you experience when you're meditating on that food while you eat it. Taste can be beautiful. Flavor can be beautiful. Goes back to what I was saying earlier. The universe itself can be as ugly or beautiful as you choose for it to be. The universe doesn't care. It will give you a bad experience just as quickly as a good one. Might as well choose the good experience. But once again, the concept of choice is frighteningly empowering. You know, if you recognize that your life is a choice, well, now suddenly you have to take responsibility for the way your life has turned out. Good or bad, it's you who put yourself there. And of course, I recognize that some people are born into, well, some people are born into downright terrifying and horrific situations. But it's still your choice if you choose to stay there. It might not be comfortable to realize that you're the one in power. It's not comfortable at first. It becomes comfortable the more you work with it. But once you get past the discomfort, then you've got the liberation. You are liberated from the horrors of the world around you, even while horrible things are happening to you. The choice makes a huge difference. And I realize that there are people out there that are listening to this that will argue and rail against what I'm saying till the bitter end. You will very logically put together an argument based on consensus reality, saying that you are the victim and that you can't do anything to change your life, and oh, poor you, and that I'm an idiot for thinking that I could possibly be in charge of anything. Well, you can feel free to go on ahead and have that belief system. But all the while you're the victim, I'm going to be turning my life into what I want it to be, because I recognize that I'm the one in charge. And I really hope that you'll do the same. I hope that you won't spend your life as a victim. I mean, heck, that's the reason why I'm recording this. I don't want people to be a victim. I don't want people to spend their lives feeling that they are at someone else's mercy. I do, however, recognize that if being a victim is the choice you've made, then I can't do anything about it. All I can do is point it out, and if you listen to me, then cool, and if not, well, I wish you the best with whatever you choose for yourself. Wouldn't it be fantastic, though, if there was a mass awakening and everyone suddenly realized that they are the master of their own fate? I'll tell you one group of people that would hate it, though. The government would hate it. People in the government, the only reason they have jobs is because we have chosen as a people to give them control over our lives. If we all became liberated, you wouldn't really need a government anymore, and it would not be a state of anarchy. That's the kicker. It would not be anarchy. Anarchy comes out of fear. And when you're in true control of your life, you don't have fear. You're not afraid. Anarchy is born out of selfishness. And you look at the people who are currently in charge of our society, they're the most selfish. We have more anarchy now than we would have if people were really free. You can't tell people that. You can't tell people that, at least not in a way that it will sink in. You know, right now, as I'm speaking, more and more people listening to this will just be arguing against everything I'm saying. They'll become more and more convinced that I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. And that's fine, but that's what happens when you start going down the rabbit hole. People will consider different ideas from their own for a little while, but eventually you're going to hit that barrier where they're just like, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. Well, I've walked long enough now that I'm back in my own neighborhood. Still a few blocks away, but I'm back in my own neighborhood now. Oh, there's an airplane flying overhead. Am I the only one who's disappointed by airplanes? It would be so much more fun if that was a UFO up there. But no, it's an airplane. Stars are still bright, though. And I wonder what percentage of them have life. I'll bet it's a much higher percentage than people believe. I would not be a bit surprised to find out that half of every star up there has a planet with life on it. It's a fun thought. You know, one of the things that I would like to do more than anything else would be to actually stand on the surface of another planet that has life on it. And there are many reasons why I'd like to do this. I mean, first of all, I would just like that notch off the bucket list that I have been on an alien planet. But there's also a side effect of doing that. And this is that when you come back to your own world, you'll look at it with fresh eyes. You see your own world very differently than you did before. And the same thing happens when you visit another country. And I mean really visit another country. I'm not talking about a resort. I'm talking about going into the villages and meeting the locals and getting to know the real country. You do that, you come back to your own country, you see it very differently. I'd like to go to an alien planet, stand on its surface, take it in. If there's intelligent life there, I would like to get to know that intelligent life. Even if there's unintelligent life there, I'd like to get to know that life too. There's a lot to be said for just hanging out in the forest with a bunch of animals. But I would love to do that, get to know another world, and then come back here and just see how differently I view my own world. Life is change, and it's good to embrace that change. Let me rephrase that. It's good to be capable of embracing that change. Not all change is good, but most of the time when people are complaining about change, it's not something bad that's happening, it's just change. And so it's good to have your arms open to it, open to the idea of change. Only rail against change if it really is bad, however you define bad. But that's what that would be. If I go to another world, I get to know this other world, and then I come back here, I will be forever changed. I will never look at this planet the same way again. Will I see it as a better place, a worse place? Will I simply view it as another culture of equal value? I don't know. That's the joy of change, is you just don't know. But yes, I would love to do that. I would love to do that so much. Stand on another planet, get to know that world, because it would open me up to get to know my home again. It would open me up to see this world in a different light. Well, I'm about ready to get into the house here, so I'm going to say goodnight for now. I'll talk to you guys next time.